Okay, I am changing the oil level sensor in a Mercedes ML350 2004. To do that, you have to drain the oil, remove the pan, and the oil sensor is inside the pan. To do that, they recommend in the instructions to remove the motor mounts and raise the engine up with one of these bars here. I'm not going to do all that. The motor mounts have enough flex in them where you can just hook it up to one of the lift points right there and raise it up just a half an inch or so. That's all you really need to do, according to the people I've talked to on the web. And once it's up just a little bit, it's enough to wiggle the oil pan out. But to get the oil pan out, that is going to be the tricky part. And the one thing I've seen that might make the difference is there is a tab, if I can find it, on the side of the oil pan right there, which is meant for a screwdriver or some kind of pry bar to go in there. You put your pry bar in there, and that's where I've got my chisel you can see mounted, and you wiggle that pan against the engine block, only in that one spot. Don't go all around the edges because you'll muck up the surface where it's supposed to mount. Don't do any of those. Go over here and wiggle that chisel back and forth, and you should be able to get it out. And you can do it with the assistance of a ball peen hammer to smack against that. And I can already see, I've only got two hands here, but I can already see that from that chisel there, I was wiggling it and the pan is moving slightly. So I will get this thing off using this technique. And then once I've raised the motor up, I'm going to get it just high enough to where I can twist this pan out. And the idea is you lower the pan, you twist it towards the back, and you bring it towards the front, and it comes right out. So I'm going to find out how likely that is. Stay tuned. And incidentally, to remove the oil pan, you're going to need a Torx bit. It's an E10 and one of those universal joint type adapters. That's essential to get at some of those pan bolts, but they come off pretty easily. They're pretty low torque. Didn't break any of them. Actually, some oil started leaking out of some of these when I took them out, which tells me that the pan is not super tight, ridiculous tight, so I can hopefully take it off without too much trouble. You want a nice spark plug wrench like that. It's kind of nice with a bend in it, and 3 extensions. I got 2 here, but I've got a third one also. Help you reach in there and get those tight spots. And finally, when it comes time to put it on, you're going to want some HTV. This is Honda Bond HTV. You can use the Mercedes-Benz brand, but this is pretty well regarded. I've used this on motorcycles. It's the same kind of stuff. It's a RTV gasket maker. You put a 2mm bead all around the edge of the pan. After you've cleaned the hell out of it, after you let it dry overnight, let it cure, then put it back on. So those are the tools of the trade. But let me get back to removing this pan. We can see how far I can go. Okay, just a quick update. You can see that, here we go, that pan came down. That was a lot easier than I thought. I did not have to hit this pan in that spot very hard with the chisel and the ball peen. Just a few taps in that spot right there. You see it? Yeah, that spot on the pan where it's meant to be pried away. If I can coordinate this right, here we go. And that, they say that RTV, which is Mercedes-Benz original, by the way, they say that's really hard. You got to warm the engine up. This engine's stone cold. I did not warm this up at all. A few taps with that chisel in that spot right there, and it came right down. Wasn't hard at all. So I'm going to twist it around and get it out from under there. And inside there is where the sensor is. I'm going to take that out next. But overall, this was not nearly the bear that I thought it would be. Some people were talking about how this stuff was on there. I couldn't believe it, blah, blah, blah. This car's got 130,000 miles on it at least. So it's not that bad if you feel like tackling this job. So far, so good. Okay, I'm partway through the job. I managed to get the pan out as a bit of a treat, but it can be done. You definitely have to raise the motor. You can see the motor mounts up there. I started by loosening them. I actually wound up taking a couple of them out. I took the nut off that one, and the other one's just about hanging on there. You could take them out, but I want to prevent the motor mounts from going completely up when I raise the motor. So I left one of them there just to sort of stop me. Anyway, I You can see I've raised the engine. I've done on this side and the other side. I've raised the engine up. You have to do that to get this oil pan out of here. I don't see any other way because it's got to clear that knuckle, whatever that is, a part of the steering system, I think. So yeah, to get the pan out past the sump and past that part there, you got to make sure the engine's raised up. So it is raised up. I got the pan out. I replaced the oil level sensor. I've got the two Torx bits holding that piece in. You can see I also raised the dipstick tube up. You can take it completely out, but I didn't feel like removing the air box. So the dipstick tube has to be raised up for you to get the pan out. Raised up or completely removed. So that's raised up. The new part's in, bolted there. It also bolts up over there, but you see I've got one bolt in, one bolt out. The reason I'm doing that is I have to move this part aside to get the pan back on. So I left it sort of hanging there with one of the Torx bolts. I'm going to take the pan, put a new bead of RTV on it, gasket maker that is, and then raise this pan back up in there, hopefully not screwing up the bead, and get it past that plastic sump piece. And then once it's more or less underneath it, then I can take the other nut, put that back in there, and have just enough room to tighten those nuts back into place. So that's the tricky part of this job, is making sure you get the bead on the oil pan gasket and getting it into place so it doesn't leak.